Hello, welcome back to the channel. Another day, another puzzle. I think that's going to be my new catchphrase. Today we are going to be solving the hanayama cake puzzle. Sounds very interesting. I actually saw it on the thumbnail of someone else's YouTube video and they called it the Pac-Man puzzle, which I quite like. I can see that. So the plan today, solve the puzzle, eat some cake, and then we'll carry on what we started in the last video. If you didn't see that, then we actually ordered all the puzzles that we've done in order of difficulty. So at the end of today, providing we solve this one, we will place it where we think it comes in terms of my own personal ranking of difficulty. So let's get into it. Okay, so here it is. As always, the challenge is to take it apart and then put it back together again. And in terms of what we're trying to get it into there's these 4 bits. So you got this shell bit here and then the 3 bits on the inside, which you can see here. Now, this is actually a thicker puzzle than I expected. Didn't expect it to be this big, based on the pictures. And movement-wise, they can all spin around. Now they don't look too dissimilar from each other. In terms of there's the only gap in all of them is this right. It's probably just right angle. It's probably a bang on a right angle there. So that's the only thing. That's the only gap in all of them. I guess I'll try and spin the first one round. Or if I spin all of them, we can sort of see what's in here on this first one. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So now if we try and spin the middle one, there's absolutely nothing there as well. And then that third one, that one looks exactly the same as well. So I was expecting for there to be some sort of difference between the 3 of them and that somehow we slide them out. So now there's an extra gap here as well as this. So essentially we've got a whole half of it to get these out. So I don't think I mentioned it at the start. This is a level 4 puzzle. So at the same level as the cast dial puzzle and the donut puzzle, the last 2 ones that we did. Now, in terms of what's blocking each one in, so each one, as we've seen, is the same. So we've got this ridge here that is, I'm guessing, the same on the middle one. So we've got that ridge there, and that sort of sits and locks in that top one. So how do we, and then the same thing at the bottom, I'm guessing there's a ridge on the bottom one that's locking the top one in, if that makes sense. So obviously we need to arrange it in a way that the ridge is not being, because it must be from here. I mean, there's a little bit of movement up and down here, but the only one we can actually see in this big gap completely is that middle one. So that middle one's got to come out first. So there obviously isn't a ridge being blocked on this gap here. But there's only not a ridge on 1/4 of each of the circle bits. Layers of the cake, let's call them. So there's got to be a position where we line up the top layer of the cake in the perfect position to get the second layer of the cake out. So let's just try various positions. Now based on the fact that it's sort of in right angles here and then another 90 degrees here, I'm just going to move in 90-degree ways. So it's got to be one of those. You can't expect it to be sort of halfway out in that position, because that just doesn't make sense. And then movement wise, in terms of actually getting it out, I'm guessing I'm gonna have to sort of grab it there and pull there, otherwise it's gonna be very awkward trying to get it out otherwise. Hardest thing about this is getting them to move individually. Part of me wants to just try moving the top one around a 1/4 and then another 1/4 and then another 1/4 and then another 1/4 and just seeing what happens at each part. And if nothing happens, then move the second layer along 1/4 and then move that top one round in every possible place, and then just keep doing that until we find a way out. But I'd rather solve it more logically than just try every possible combination and see what works. One of the complicated bits about it is that you can only see like half of it, so it's hard to tell if one of these is on the other side, is in sort of this position, or whether it's sort of like staggered half and half. I feel like I should write down what positions I've been in and tried pulling it out on paper and pen. Maybe that'll help. So we don't keep repeating ourselves and just trying the same thing over and over again. Don't get how we get off half of this ridge, because there's only a quarter of it that can be off it. Now if I've got this right now the second layer, middle layer, is not being stopped by the groove on this top one at all, but it is being stopped by the bottom one, because I can't pull that one out from this position because the ridge at the back here would be catching it from the ridge on the bottom layer. It would be catching the middle layer. How do we line up that? And the reason it's not catching the top layer at the minute is because both are in the right position. Whereas if we turn this one around, the third layer, the bottom layer, that's only going to be off of a quarter of it, because we're already using half of it for this top bit here. Now you see it can drop down there. Now, if we keep these top two in the same position and try and move just the bottom one around, that's the hardest part, moving just one part of it. But it's that middle layer that that should come out first, but how do I grab it when it's on that side? See, this doesn't lift up high enough, not in any position that I've found so far, for it to be any other bit that comes out first than the middle layer. Oh, so we've got some movement. Now that is with, I don't want to let go of this. So we've got the middle layer, that gap is here at the minute. The bottom layer's gap is there. And the thinking was that would unlock or unhook that off there. Oh, we've done it. We've done it. There we go. 23 minutes and 40 seconds. So let's have a quick look at the bits while we've got it apart. These all are exactly the same. The layers of the cake are all, there's no difference whatsoever in any of them. On the inside, there's nothing special. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that, but you'll see this little ridge there. So that just carries on all the way around to here. So yeah, nothing special about the design. You've then got sort of the opposite ridge on the roof. Again, that's sort of a circle inside there. So putting it back together should just be a case of reversing the position that we got into to get it off. Yeah, not sure if I can remember that. So let's see how we get on. So that was actually a fairly easy one to solve. It wasn't the quickest one that we've done, but we knew how it was going to open fairly early on, and it was a case of going through the motions, applying a bit of logic to it, and then eventually we got the solution. There seems to be a trend in the level 4 hanayama puzzles. This one's a level 4, I forgot to mention that at the start. So level 4s are these ones. So we've got the dial puzzle, the donut puzzle, and the cake puzzle. Now the trend seems to be that there's quite a lot of parts to each bit, but there's one position that you need to get it in for it all to come apart in one go. Whereas contrast that with for instance, these ones down here, the level 5 padlock and the level 6, what's that one called, the vortex. That one has stages to open to opening it. You have to get it through the step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and then it all comes apart. Stage 4, get it in one position and you're done. So applying that logic to it, the levels that hanayama are giving these puzzles makes sense, which then applies to the backwards with the level 1 puzzle. There's not many parts to it. This loop puzzle, this loop one's the only level 1 that we've got, but there's 2 parts to it and 1 move that solves it, job done. So their ranking system makes sense. As for actually solving this one, we figured out how it opened, as I said, and we just sort of went through the motions, applied a bit of logic, and then yeah, eventually it came open. It's a fairly fiddly puzzle, trying to get the 3 separate layers of the cake to move individually of each other can be quite fiddly. But all in all, it's a fairly simple puzzle, this one. So in terms of ranking, this is my own ranking system now. If you didn't see it before, then in the previous video, we actually put these in order of difficulty, easiest to hardest. So where does the cake one rank? Now, it's a fairly easy one. Again, it wasn't the quickest, but it was an easy one, as in we figured out how it opened quite early on. So definitely harder than the loop puzzle. This one's just the anomaly out of them all. The news puzzle, it's given a level 6 difficulty by hanayama, but it's just not. It's just not. I feel like they've got that one completely wrong. So this one is harder than the news puzzle. Is it harder than the donuts? Probably not. Probably not. And the reason for that is the donuts, I didn't quite figure out how it opened until quite late on. Whereas this one we figured out early on, and it still took, actually it took longer than this one. But this one, I feel there was a little bit of luck in it, in terms of that it was the fastest one we've ever done, if that makes sense. So the cake puzzle is gonna live in between the news puzzle and the donuts puzzle. And with all that talk of cakes and donuts, I'm getting hungry. So if you are new around here and you've got to this part of the video, if you've been entertained in any way, shape or form, then please like the video below. If you are new, then hit this circle button here to subscribe, or check out these other 2 videos just here. Oh, I'm hungry. Time to eat. See you later. Peace.